Yes. Hi, I'm live. Whoever's here. Oh, it's nobody. Suits me. I prefer there to be nobody. Oh, hello, somebody. It's nearly time for Villette. I got all caught up. I was watching Don't Starve. I was playing Don't Starve. It was very absorbing. It's freezing here today. I don't like it. 2 people. How are you guys? My hair is finally getting its natural curl back. Pretty good, although it does make me feel 13. I'm not. I'm a lot older than 13. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap. Although we didn't really do much yesterday. We're still talking about the huge scandal of the love letter in the little casket that fell into the alleyway that's haunted by a nun. And Dr. John is involved in some way, but he's not the guy who wrote the letter. Or maybe he is. He was about to tell Lucy who wrote the letter. But then they realized Madame Beck was eavesdropping. So all Lucy knows is that Dr. John thinks that the girl receiving the love letter is the most beautiful and kind and good and innocent and pure creature in the world. And Lucy's just thinking, that doesn't fit anyone here. Because she does not miss an opportunity to tell us how much everyone else sucks. So that was good. That was a nice chapter. Did you hear that? Swear to God. They only want me to open and shut the door. That's all they want. So yeah, we're 3 minutes in. How are you guys? I'm fine. I was out today. I got a blood test. Find out if my thyroid's a piece of shit, and if it is, get some medicine for it. Pretty good. The nurse was really quick. She came in and she was like, zip, zip, zip. All right, bye, see ya. And I was like, am I allowed to leave? And she's like, yeah. All right. You have to take a number when you come in. And I got number 237, which I thought was pretty good. The Shining. So 4 minutes in, too early to start. Could try and recap for the entire book. Josh, nope, you're not early. Well, I usually don't start until 10 minutes in because people are late, but then they know that. So they budget that time and end up being even later still. So I'm going to start about 10 minutes from when I start. And we're about 5 minutes in now, 4.5 minutes. I'm glad that the chat's working. Just recap the last chapter. Bunch of fuss over a love letter. Lucy doesn't know who wrote it. Or did Dr. John write it? Fuck, I can't remember. It was only the other day. Don't know. Can't remember. But chapter 14 is called The Fete, or Party. And it's quite a long chapter, so I'm really looking forward to this one. I would love to have Evelyn guest on the stream. I don't know what a guest on the stream would actually do. Laugh at me and point so you could hear it a little bit off camera. Bring me an allergy pill so you watch me take an allergy pill. But anyway, we've got 3 guests come in and out. Naibi's been very excitable lately. She's been very much into leaping out at fits from behind corners and things, which is not very nice of her. Oh, we got 4 people. That's pretty much... Oh, hi, Jessie. Welcome. That's pretty much us, isn't it? Wait a little bit longer. Oh, yeah. I need an assistant. When I go pro at whatever it is I do, I'll get an assistant, like how Drill is Derek's assistant, to open the door for me and let the cats in and out, that kind of thing. Maybe I'll make them dress up like a sparkly magician's assistant costume. I can make them put the cat head on. It's a giant cat head mask, like a mascot head. I didn't realize that cats understood masks, but I put it on. They all freaked out. Hey, oh, you guys are here. Awesome. Awesome. I will just do that tweet that I forget to do every single time that says that we are go. Also, if I went pro, I would have an assistant who would tell me to do things properly. We're going. Doesn't matter. All right. About 3 minutes in. Oh, 3 minutes. About 8 minutes in. So who we got? We got Josh, Jesse, Danny, John. We got... That's all. But I'm here, and that's the main thing. Former guest Arm, John. John's Arm has been a guest. John's Arm, friend of the show. Actually, I think John set up everything that I used to do this, so... Oh. And you guys for turning up. You are the main reason that, any of this is happening. Is that Naibi? No. You know what? Fuck it. It's 9 minutes in. Let's go. We're still talking. Guest/gaffer. You're all part of my crew by turning up and listening. Somehow. All right. Villette by Charlotte Bronte. Chapter 14. The Fete, or Party. As soon as Georgette was well, Madame sent her away into the country. I was sorry. I loved the child, and her loss made me poorer than before. But I must not complain. I lived in a house full of robust life. I might have had companions, and I chose solitude. Each of the teachers in turn made me overtures of special intimacy. I tried them all. One I found to be an honest woman, but a narrow thinker, a coarse feeler, and an egotist. The second was a Parisienne, externally refined, at heart corrupt, without a creed, without a principle, without an affection. Having penetrated the outward crust of decorum in this character, you found a slough beneath. She had a wonderful passion for presence, and in this point, the third teacher, a person otherwise characterless and insignificant, closely resembled her. She's a coarse feeler. Oh, hi, Nick. Welcome. Jeez, this is Lucy saying all the other teachers tried to be my friend. Here's how they were inadequate. This last named had also one other distinctive property, that of avarice. In her reigned the love of money for its own sake. The sight of a piece of gold would bring into her eyes a green glisten, singular to witness. She once, as a mark of high favour, took me upstairs, and opening a secret drawer, showed me a hoard, a mass of coarse, large coin, about 15 guineas in 5-franc pieces. She loved this hoard as a bird loves its eggs. These were her savings. She would come and talk to me about them with an infatuated and persevering dotage, strange to behold in a person not yet 25. My niece, one of my nieces, was obsessed with coins. She loved coins, especially gold ones. And she was about 3 back then. And if you gave her a gold coin, she would bury it. She just had Viking instincts. She was burying a hoard. She didn't know why. She just knew. I miss that kid. It's just hard to travel to the North Island. Nothing happened to her or anything. The Parisienne, on the other hand, or Lady from Paris, was prodigal and profligate. In disposition, that is, as to action, I do not know. That latter quality showed its snake head to me but once, peering out very cautiously. A curious kind of reptile it seemed, judging from the glimpse I got. Its novelty whetted my curiosity. If it would have come out boldly, perhaps I might philosophically have stood my ground and coolly surveyed the long thing from forked tongue to scaly tail tip. But it merely rustled in the leaves of a bad novel, and on encountering a hasty and ill-advised demonstration of wrath, recoiled and vanished, hissing. She hated me from that day. She gives no details, but she's just like, yeah, well, you know, that bitch liked to spend money. And I got real mad at her, and then she just never talked to me again. But actually, I didn't want to ever talk to her again. So this Parisienne was always in debt, her salary being anticipated not only in dress, but in perfumes, cosmetics, confectionery, and condiments. The North Island, that's true. New Zealand is made up of 3 islands: the North Island, the South Island, and Stewart Island, which no one's ever actually been to. And Antarctica. I think that's ours. What a cold, callous epicure she was in all things. I see her now, thin in face and figure, sallow in complexion, regular in features with perfect teeth, lips like a thread, a large prominent chin, a well-opened but frozen eye, of light at once craving and ingrate. She mortally hated work and loved what she called pleasure, being an insipid, heartless, brainless dissipation of time. Yeah, but no hard feelings, right? Madame Beck knew this woman's character perfectly well. About New Zealand, we don't even know what's true. We just kind of get on with it. Don't worry about facts too much. Madame Beck knew this woman's character perfectly well. She once talked to me about her, with an odd mixture of discrimination, indifference, and antipathy. I asked why she kept her in the establishment, She answered plainly because it suited her interest to do so, and pointed out a fact that I had already noticed, namely that Mademoiselle St. Pierre possessed, in an almost unique degree, the power of keeping order amongst her undisciplined ranks of scholars. A certain petrifying influence accompanied and surrounded her. Without passion, noise, or violence, she held them in check as a breezeless frost air might still a brawling stream. She was of little use as far as communication of knowledge went, but for strict surveillance and maintenance of rules, she was invaluable. Je sais bien qu'elle n'a pas de principe, ni peut-être de mots, admitted Madame frankly, but added with philosophy, son maintien en classe est toujours convenable et rempli même d'une certaine dignité. C'est tout ce qu'il faut. Ni les élèves ni les parents ne regardent pas loin, plus loin, ni, par conséquent, moi non plus. I mean, you can't talk back to that, really, can you? I forgot how much French was in this. She said, I know very well that she has no principles, or maybe no morals. But her control of the class is always good and has a certain dignity about it. That's all we need. The students, the parents, they don't want more than that. And so, neither do I. Loosely translated. Oh, yeah, Stewart Island is a real place, yeah. And people do actually live there. Just I've never been there. A strange, frolicsome, noisy little world was this school. Great pains were taken to hide chains with flowers. A subtle essence of Romanism pervaded every arrangement. Catholicism. Not many, if any. Exactly. Large sensual indulgence, so to speak, was permitted by way of counterpoise to jealous spiritual restraint. Each mind was being reared in slavery, but to prevent reflection from dwelling on this fact, every pretext for physical recreation was seized and made the most of. There, as elsewhere, the church strove to bring up her children robust in body, feeble in soul, fat, ruddy, joyous, hale, ignorant, unthinking, unquestioning. Eat, drink, and live, she says. Look after your bodies, leave your souls to me. I hold their cure. Guide their course, I guarantee their final fate. A bargain in which every true Catholic deems himself a gainer. Lucifer just offers the same terms. All this power will I give thee, and the glory of it, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will I give it. If thou, therefore, wilt worship me, all shall be thine. Lucy's getting a little bit ahead of herself. The middle island. God, that would have been funny. Lucy just hates Catholics so much. I mean, if you believe in God, that's probably easier to understand. That the church is kind of dooming all these young girls to hell by teaching them the wrong stuff. But Lucy goes a little bit overboard. About this time, in the ripest glow of summer, Madame Beck's house became as merry a place as a school could well be. All day long, the broad folding doors and the two-leaved casements stood wide open. Settled sunshine seemed naturalized in the atmosphere. Clouds were far off, sailing away beyond sea, resting, no doubt, round islands such as England, that dear land of mists, but withdrawn wholly from the drier continent. We lived far more in the garden than under a roof. Classes were held and meals partaken of in the Grand Berceau. Outdoors. Just a nice bit. The three directions, north, south, and stew. Yeah. Exactly. The fourth direction is a secret. Moreover, there was a note of holiday preparation which almost turned freedom into license. Not license. The autumnal long vacation was but 2 months distant, but before that, a great day, an important ceremony, none other than the fête of Madame awaited celebration. The great party of Madame Beck. The conduct of this fête devolved chiefly on Mademoiselle Saint-Pierre. This is the Parisian lady from earlier. Parisian? Don't know. Don't care. Madame herself being supposed to stand aloof, disinterestedly unconscious of what might be going forward in her honour. Especially, she never knew, never in the least suspected, that a subscription was annually levied on the whole school for the purchase of a handsome present. The polite tact of the reader will please to leave out of the account a brief secret consultation on this point in Madame's own chamber. I hated working for a person like that. Everything just had to celebrate how great that person was. He just wasn't. Sorry, I thought I heard the cat. Nope. What will you have this year? Was asked by her Parisian lieutenant. Oh, no matter. Let it alone. Let the poor children keep their francs. And Madame looked benign and modest. The Saint-Pierre would here protrude her chin. She knew Madame by heart. She always called her airs of bonté des grimaces. She never even professed to respect them one instant. So the Parisian woman just looked at Madame Beck, being like, oh, nothing for me, nothing for me. And she was like, oh, she makes those faces. She doesn't mean it. Oh, hello, welcome. Oh, all right, well, I'll piss off then. Just looking at the numbers. Somebody dropped in. Vite, she would say coldly. Hurry. Name the article. Shall it be jewellery or porcelain, haberdashery or silver? Eh bien, 2 ou 3 cuillères et autant de fourchettes en argent. 2 or 3 spoons and as many forks in silver. Yes. Yeah, Villette is absolutely the Inferno, where Lucy is tempted by all kinds of things. But she only really falls for wrath, I think. We can go into this another time. And the result was a handsome case containing 300 francs worth of plate. Silver. Not plates. Completely different. The program of the fête day's proceedings comprised presentation of plate, collation in the garden, dramatic performance, with pupils and teachers for actors, a dance and supper. Very gorgeous seemed the effect of the whole to me, as I well remember. Zélie Saint-Pierre understood these things and managed them ably. The play was the main point, a month's previous drilling being there required. The choice, too, of the actors required knowledge and care. Then came lessons in elocution and attitude, and then the fatigue of countless rehearsals. For all this, as may well be supposed, Saint-Pierre did not suffice. Other management, other accomplishments than hers were requisite here. They were supplied in the person of a master, Monsieur Paul Emmanuel, professor of literature. It was never my lot to be present at the histrionic lessons of Monsieur Paul, but I often saw him as he crossed the carré, a square hall between the dwelling house and schoolhouse. I heard him too in the warm evenings, lecturing with open doors, and his name, with anecdotes of him, resounded in one's ears from all sides. Especially our former acquaintance, Miss Ginevra Fanshawe, who had been selected to take a prominent part in the play. used in bestowing upon me a large portion of her leisure to lard her discourse with frequent allusions to his sayings and doings. She esteemed him hideously plain, and used to profess herself frightened almost into hysterics at the sound of his step or voice. I love that Lucy's like, well, Ginevra was trying really hard to be my friend. Can't believe she would inflict herself on me all the time. It's ridiculous. I do like smelling her hair, though. Sorry, but we were talking about Monsieur Paul. A dark little man he certainly was, pungent and austere. Even to me he seemed a harsh apparition, with his close-shorn black head, his broad sallow brow, his thin cheek, his wide and quivering nostril, his thorough glance and hurried bearing. Irritable he was. One heard that, as he apostrophized with vehemence the awkward squad under his orders. Sometimes he would break out on these raw amateur actresses with a passion of impatience at their falseness of conception, their coldness of emotion, their feebleness of delivery. "Écoutez," he would cry. "Listen." And then his voice rang through the premises like a trumpet, and when, mimicking it, came the small pipe of a Ginevra, a Matilda, or a Blanche, one understood why a hollow groan of scorn or a fierce hiss of rage rewarded the tame echo. "Vous n'êtes donc des poupées," I heard him thunder. "Vous n'avez pas de passion, vous autres. Vous ne sentez donc rien? Votre chair est de neige, votre sang est de glace. Moi, je veux que tout cela s'allume, qu'il ait une vie, une âme." "Well, are you nothing but dollies?" he said. "You have no passions, you others. You don't feel anything. Is your flesh made of snow? Is your blood made of ice? Me, I need that all of this is a light. Everyone who has a life and soul." I'm going loosely. Vain resolve. And when at last he found it was vain, he suddenly broke the whole business down. Hitherto he had been teaching them a grand tragedy. He tore the tragedy to morsels and came next day with a compact little comic trifle. To this they took more kindly. He presently knocked it all into their smooth round pates. Yeah, they are bad dollies. Lucy is just full of contempt for everyone, and I just love it. She just thinks what she's going to think and doesn't tell people, because that's none of their business. Got to admire that. Mademoiselle St-Pierre always presided at Monsieur Emmanuel's lessons, and I was told that the polish of her manner, her seeming attention, her tact and grace impressed that gentleman very favourably. Ooh! She had indeed the art of pleasing, for a given time, whom she would, but the feeling would not last. In an hour it was dried like dew, vanished like gossamer. Every nice thing she says about a person, she's got to follow it up with something mean. I mean, she could be pretty charming to people, but didn't last. Yeah, only for about an hour or so, and then they were like, "Oh, I get it, she's a bitch. I love you, Lucy. My love means nothing to you." Just love her even more. The day preceding Madame's fête was as much a holiday as the fête itself. It was devoted to clearing out, cleaning, arranging, and decorating the 3 schoolrooms. All within doors was the gayest bustle. Neither upstairs nor down could a quiet, isolated person find rest but for the sole of her foot. Accordingly, for my part, I took refuge in the garden. The whole day did I wander or sit there alone, finding warmth in the sun, shelter among the trees, and a sort of companionship in my own thoughts. I well remember that I exchanged but 2 sentences that day with any living being. Not that I felt solitary, I was glad to be quiet. For a looker-on, it sufficed to pass through the rooms once or twice, observe what changes were being wrought, how a green room and a dressing room were being contrived, a little stage with scenery erected, how Monsieur Paul Emmanuel, in conjunction with Mademoiselle St. Pierre, was directing all, and how an eager band of pupils, amongst them Ginevra Fanshawe, were working gaily under his control. It's gonna get gayer. Turns out I accidentally hid a 6-pack of Pepsi Max from myself. Found it today. Incredible. The great day arrived. The sun rose hot and unclouded it burned on till evening. All the doors and all the windows were set open, which gave a pleasant sense of summer freedom, and freedom the most complete seemed indeed the order of the day. Teachers and pupils descended to breakfast in dressing gowns and curl papers, anticipating avec délice the toilette of the evening. They seemed to take a pleasure in indulging that forenoon a luxury of slovenliness, like aldermen fasting in preparation for a feast. Oh yeah, do you not have Pepsi Max? It's way cheaper than Diet Coke. I prefer Diet Coke, but I'll take a Diet Pepsi. Curl papers are you'd curl, either papers or a bit of damp cloth, round and round around the head and sleep in it to get those Victorian ringlets. Very uncomfortable to sleep in. I remember that. I had my hair done like that with rags. They were rag curls for, I think it was a unit at school or at Brownies where we were learning about the Victorians. And it was not comfortable to sleep in at all. I'm not looking down the Victorians. I do a bunch of stuff that's really dumb and hurts to get a specific look. So, but I do remember taking out the rags and thinking, wow, look at my hair. Scrunchies. This thing for scrunchies coming back is so weird because they made me feel like a kid wearing a scrunchie. I'm not saying that like, oh, it makes me feel young. No, it makes me feel like a little kid. Not good. Right. So anyway, all the gals are lounging around their dressing gowns and curl papers. Oh, we'll get ready later on. We've got the play tonight. Hilarious. About 9:00 a.m., an important functionary, the coiffeur, arrived. The hairdresser. Sacrilegious to state, he fixed his headquarters in the oratory, and there, in the presence of bénitier, candle, and crucifix, solemnized the mysteries of his art. Each girl was summoned in turn to pass through his hands, emerging from them with head as smooth as a shell, intersected by faultless white lines, and wreathed about with Grecian plaits that shone as if lacquered. I took my turn with the rest, and could hardly believe what the glass said when I applied to it for information afterwards. Or looked in the mirror, as we say in modern days. The lavish garlandry of woven brown hair amazed me. Feared it was not all my own, and it required several convincing pulls to give assurance to the contrary. I then acknowledged in the coiffeur a first-rate artist, one who certainly made the most of indifferent materials. Yes, all right. Here you come. I love you, darling. Wear a scrunchie to sleep while your hair is wet. Really? I need to see pictures or video of how to set that up. just pulling at bits of it, just tugging at it. While the hairdresser goes, "No, stop it, you crazy English bitch." She's like, "Guess what? I'm going to write a drama book about you." The oratory closed. The dormitory became the scene of ablutions, arrayings, and bedizenings curiously elaborate. To me, it was, and ever must be, an enigma how they contrived to spend so much time in doing so little. Lucy's not like other girls. The operation seemed close, intricate, and prolonged. The result simple. A clear white muslin dress, a blue sash, the Virgin's colours, a pair of white or straw-colour kid gloves. Such was the gala uniform, to the assumption whereof that houseful of teachers and pupils devoted 3 mortal hours. But though simple, it must be allowed the array was perfect. Perfect in fashion, fit, and freshness, every head being also dressed with exquisite nicety and a certain compact taste, suiting the full, firm comeliness of Labascourian contours, though too stiff for any more flowing and flexible style of beauty. The general effect was, on the whole, commendable. Rare praise from Lucy. Your hair hates being styled. That's because your hair wants to do what it wants to do. So does mine. It's so strong. Yeah. I like my hair. I'm going back to my natural hair, and it's interesting. Once this colour grows back down, which is, say it with me, I've said it every video, and I'll say it every video again, ash blonde, not grey. Oh yeah, the coiffeur, he's a professional, and he's set up in the oratory, so he also, I guess, is kind of heretical towards the Catholic faith. That must have scored him points. Ash blonde. Oh, thank you, Jessie. Do you hate your hair, Nick? Well, there's lots of little boys who are grown men who would love to have your hair, no matter what it looks like. You know, there's... I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm pretty tired. Yeah, I've done many things with my hair. I need to come back to this. Right, and beholding this diaphanous and snowy mass, I well remember feeling myself to be a mere shadowy spot on a field of light. The courage was not in me to put on a transparent white dress. Something thin I must wear, the weather in rooms being too hot to give substantial fabrics sufferance. So I had sought through a dozen shops till I lit upon a crepe-like material of purple-grey. The colour, in short, of dun mist, lying on a moor in bloom. Ah, the moors. The moors once again. Florabella. Who dat? Who dat? Who the people? Ah. She's gone again. I had almost forgotten this was a Bronte. Good girl, Flora. Good girl. My tailleuse had kindly made it as well as she could. Not sure what a tailleuse is, to be honest. Oh yeah, like the video if you want to. Thanks. Thank you, Josh. I also forget. I'm bad at YouTube. My tailleuse had kindly made it as well as she could because, as she judiciously observed, it was si triste, si peu voyant. So sad, hard to see, you know, so little seen. Care in the fashion was the more imperative. It was well she took this view of the matter, for I had no flower, no jewel to relieve it, and what was more, I had no natural rose of complexion. We become oblivious of these deficiencies in the uniform routine of daily drudgery, but they will force upon us their unwelcome blank on those bright occasions when beauty should shine. However, in this same gown of shadow, I felt at home and at ease, an advantage I should not have enjoyed in anything more brilliant or striking. Madame Beck, too, kept me in countenance. Her dress was almost as quiet as mine, except that she wore a bracelet and a large brooch bright with gold and fine stones. We chanced to meet on the stairs, and she gave me a nod and a smile of approbation. Not that she thought I was looking well, a point unlikely to engage her interest, but she considered me dressed convenablement, décemment, and la convenance et la décence were the two calm deities of Madame's worship. Decently and appropriately, basically. She even paused, laid on my shoulder her gloved hand, holding an embroidered and perfumed handkerchief, and confided to my ear a sarcasm on the other teachers, whom she had just been complimenting to their faces. Nothing so absurd, she said, as for des femmes mûres to dress themselves like girls of 15. Quant à la Saint-Pierre, elle a l'air d'une vieille coquette qui fait l'ingénue. Ouch! Oh, Lucy in the gown of shadow. It's ridiculous for, grown women to dress themselves like they're 15. And as for Miss St. Pierre, she looks like an old flirt, an aged, flirty woman who's trying to act like an ingenue, like a fresh, bright young girl. Doesn't know anything. Ouch. Especially since Mademoiselle St. Pierre basically set the whole thing up. Being dressed at least a couple of hours before anybody else, I felt a pleasure in betaking myself, not to the garden, where servants were busy propping up long tables, placing seats, and spreading cloths in readiness for the collation, but to the schoolrooms, now empty, quiet, cool and clean, their walls fresh stained, their planked floors fresh scoured and scarce dry, flowers fresh gathered adorning the recesses, and pots and draperies fresh hung, beautifying the great windows. Ingenue. It's an English word now. Haha, France. Withdrawing to the first class, a smaller and neater room than the others, and taking from the glazed bookcase, of which I kept the key, a volume whose title promised some interest, I sat down to read. The glass door of this classe, or schoolroom, opened onto the large berceau. Acacia boughs caressed its panes, as they stretched across to meet a rose bush blooming by the opposite lintel. In this rose bush, bees murmured, busy and happy. I commenced reading. Just as the stilly hum, the embowering shade, the warm, lonely calm of my retreat were beginning to steal meaning from the page, vision from my eyes, and to lure me along the track of reverie down into some deep dell of dreamland. Just then, the sharpest ring of the street door bell, to which that much-tried instrument had ever thrilled, snatched me back to consciousness. Now, the bell had been ringing all morning, as workmen, or servants, or coiffeurs, or tailleurs went and came on their several errands. Moreover, there was good reason to expect it would ring all the afternoon, since about 100 externes were yet to arrive in carriages or fiacres. Nor could it be expected to rest during the evening, when parents and friends would gather thronging to the play. And once, just a little reminder, the externes are the girls who don't board there. They're the day girls. Saved by the bell from falling asleep and missing everything. Under these circumstances, a ring, even a sharp ring, was a matter of course. Yet this particular peal had an accent of its own, which chased my dream and startled my book from my knee. I was stooping to pick up this last when, firm, fast, straight, right on through vestibule, along corridor, across carré, through first division, second division, grande salle, strode a step, quick, regular, intent. The closed door of the first class, my sanctuary, offered no obstacle. It burst open, and a paletot and a bonnet grec filled the void. Also 2 eyes, first vaguely struck upon, then hungrily dived into me. Dived into her with his eyes? Good lord, fella. I'm going to have to look up what a paletot is. A bonnet grec just says Greek hat. So, Greek hat? There's no footnote. Doesn't matter. Some kind of French garment of the time. Yeah. Oh, exactly. C'est cela, said a voice. Je la connais, c'est l'anglaise. Tant pis. Toute anglaise, et par conséquent, toute bégueule qu'elle soit, elle fera mon affaire, ou je saurai pourquoi. Then, with a certain stern politeness, I suppose he thought I had not caught the drift of his previous uncivil mutterings, and in a jargon the most execrable that ever was heard, Miss, play you must. I am planted there. I'm going to go to the proper translation for this one because I don't want to do a real loose one for you guys. Of course I know. Thank you, Jessie. I've never actually spoken French in a francophone country because I have never been to one. And probably never will. Okay. This is worse than it sounded even. So what Monsieur Paul said is, that's it. I know her. It's the English woman. Too bad. Completely English and thus completely prudish as she may be, she will do what I want, or I'll know the reason why. Monsieur Paul, you scumbag. Sorry, I shouldn't say things about characters that we've only just met. What can I do for you, Monsieur Paul Emmanuel? I inquired, for Monsieur Paul Emmanuel it was, and in a state of no little excitement. Play you must. I will not have you shrink, or frown, or make the prude. I read your skull that night you came. I see your moyen. Play you can. Play you must. Phrenology. Good man. But how, Monsieur Paul, what do you mean? There is no time to be lost, he went on now, speaking in French, and let us thrust to the wall all reluctance, all excuses, all minauderies. You must take a part. In the vaudeville. In the vaudeville. You have said it. I gasped, horror-struck. What did the little man mean? Listen, he said. The case shall be stated, and you shall then answer me yes or no, and according to your answer shall I ever after estimate you. I know, it's very rude. It's like asking her age. The scarce suppressed impetus of a most irritable nature glowed in his cheek, fed with sharp shafts his glances, a nature, the injudicious, the mawkish, the hesitating, the sullen, the affected, above all the unyielding, might quickly render violent and implacable. Silence and attention was the best balm to apply. I listened. It is vexing. Lucy has survived so much vexing in her life that she's become completely vexed. Whoops, sorry. And immune to it. I don't know if you guys can see. Oh, I thought they were cat eyes, but they ran away. Never mind. Never mind. Right, the whole matter is going to fail, he began. Louise van der Kelkhoff has fallen ill. At least so her ridiculous mother asserts. For my part, I feel sure she might play if she would. It is only goodwill that lacks. She was charged with a role, as you know, or do not know, it is equal. Without that role, the play is stopped. There are but now a few hours in which to learn it. Not a girl in the school would hear reason and accept the task. Forsooth, it is not an interesting, not an amiable part. Their vile amour-propre, self-love, self-esteem, but in a bad way. Pride, kind of. That base quality of which women have so much would revolt from it. English women are either the best or the worst of their sex. Dieu sait que je les déteste comme la peste ordinairement. This between his recreant teeth. I apply to an English woman to rescue me. What is her answer? Yes or no? And what Monsieur Paul said was, God knows I hate them like the plague, usually. He's a charmer, isn't he? A thousand objections rushed into my mind. The foreign language, the limited time, the public display. Inclination recoiled, ability faltered, self-respect, that vile quality, trembled. No, 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 said all these. No, 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 in English. But looking up at Monsieur Paul and seeing in his vexed, fiery, and searching eye a sort of appeal behind all its menace, my lips dropped the word, oui. For a moment, his rigid countenance relaxed with a quiver of content. Quickly bent up again, however, he went on. Vite à l'ouvrage. Here is the book. Here is your role. Read. Let's hurry to get started. Well, the pest. La peste. It means plague, but like all of the plagues. Tons of different plagues. He just hates women, English women as much as he hates every plague. Usually. And I read. He did not commend. At some passages he scowled and stamped. He gave me a lesson. I diligently imitated. It was a disagreeable part. A man's. An empty-headed fop's. One could put into it neither heart nor soul. I hated it. The play, a mere trifle, ran chiefly on the efforts of a brace of rivals to gain the hand of a fair coquette. One lover was called the ours, the bear, a good and gallant but unpolished man, a sort of diamond in the rough. The other was a butterfly, a talker and a traitor. And I was to be the butterfly, talker, and traitor. I did my best, which was bad, I know. It provoked Monsieur Paul. He fumed. Putting both hands to the work, I endeavoured to do better than my best. I presume he gave me credit for good intentions. He professed to be partially content. Ça ira, he cried. Yeah, let's go. It's fine. Let's go. And as voices began sounding from the garden and white dresses fluttering among the trees, he added, You must withdraw. You must be alone to learn this. Come with me. Without being allowed time or power to deliberate, I found myself in the same breath convoyed along as in a species of whirlwind. Upstairs, up 2 pair of stairs, nay, actually up 3, for this fiery little man seemed, as by instinct, to know his way everywhere. To the solitary and lofty attic was I borne, put in and locked in, the key being on the door, and that key he took with him and vanished. I mean, it's one way to treat a person doing you a huge favour, I guess. Sorry, my cat's making me itchy. I'm not allergic to them, it's just there's so much fur around. The attic was no pleasant place. I believe he did not know how unpleasant it was, or he never would have locked me in with so little ceremony. In this summer weather, it was hot as Africa. As in winter, it was always cold as Greenland. Boxes and lumber filled it. Old dresses draped its unstained wall. Cobwebs its unswept ceiling. Well was it known to be tenanted by rats, by black beetles, and by cockroaches. Nay, rumour affirmed that the ghostly nun of the garden had once been seen here. I think if you've got a bunch of old dresses hanging up on the wall, you're going to see a few ghosts of nuns. A partial darkness obscured one end, across which, as for deeper mystery, an old russet curtain was drawn, by way of screen as to a sombre band of winter cloaks, pendant each from its pin like a malefactor from his gibbet. A gibbet, of course, being a place where they used to hang people in the olden days. From amongst these cloaks, and behind that curtain, the nun was said to issue. I did not believe this, nor was I troubled by apprehension thereof, but I saw a very dark and large rat with a long tail come gliding out from that squalid alcove, and moreover my eye fell on many a black beetle dotting the floor. These objects discomposed me more perhaps than it would be wise to say, as also did the dust, lumber, and stifling heat of the place. The last inconvenience would soon have become intolerable, had I not found means to open and prop up the skylight, thus admitting some freshness. Underneath this aperture I pushed a large empty chest, and having mounted upon it a smaller box, and wiped from both the dust, I gathered my dress, my best, the reader must remember, and therefore a legitimate object of care, fastidiously around me, ascended the species of extempore throne, and being seated, commenced the acquisition of my task, while I learned, not forgetting to keep a sharp lookout on the black beetles and cockroaches, of which, more even, I believe, than of the rats, I sat in mortal dread. Yes, the Great Plague of Marseille. Crazy. I studied a paper about medieval and early modern plagues at university, and it was absolutely fascinating. I have to talk about that one day. Anyway, my impression at first was that I had undertaken what it really was impossible to perform, and I simply resolved to do my best and be resigned to fail. I soon found, however, that one part in so short a piece was not more than memory could master at a few hours' notice. I learned and learned on, first in a whisper and then aloud. Perfectly secure from human audience, I acted my part before the garret vermin. Entering into its emptiness, frivolity, and falsehood, with a spirit inspired by scorn and impatience, I took my revenge on this fat by making him as fatuous as I possibly could. Yeah, plagues, very interesting stuff. She's calling him a fat. She means a fatuous person, the role that she's playing. So she's diving into this role of a fuckboy. And she's like, I'm going to make it the most fuckboyest fuckboy that ever fuckboyed because this part sucks and I hate it. Which, interestingly enough, was the first Twilight movie. Yeah. That's where Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart got their inspiration for fucking hating their characters. Or from somewhere else. This has been Hollywood Insider. In this exercise, the afternoon passed. Day began to glide into evening, and I, who had eaten nothing since breakfast, grew excessively hungry. Now I thought of the collation, which doubtless they were just then devouring in the garden far below. I had seen in the vestibule a basket full of small pâté à la crème, than which nothing in the whole range of cookery seemed to me better. A pâté, or a square of cake, it seemed to me would come very apropos, and as my relish for these dainties increased, it began to appear somewhat hard that I should pass my holiday fasting and in prison. Remote as was the attic from the street door and vestibule, yet the ever-tinkling bell was faintly audible here, and also the ceaseless roll of wheels on the tormented pavement. I knew that the house and garden were thronged, and that all was gay and glad below. Here it began to grow dusk. The beetles were fading from my sight. I trembled lest they should steal on me a march, mount my throne unseen, and unsuspected invade my skirts. Impatient and apprehensive, I recommenced the rehearsal of my part merely to kill time. Cream cake! I want a cream cake. I know that I did have a custard donut today, but I didn't have a cream cake. I don't know. It's that way that women do when they're like crying, but they don't want to mess up their makeup, but also their nails are really long. I don't really know how to do it. I don't keep my nails long. Recommenced the rehearsal of my part merely to kill time. Just as I was concluding, the long-delayed rattle of the key in the lock came to my ear. No unwelcome sound. Monsieur Paul, I could just see through the dusk that it was Monsieur Paul, for light enough still lingered to show the velvet blackness of his close-shorn head and the sallow ivory of his brow, looked in. "Brava!" cried he, holding the door open and remaining at the threshold. "J'ai tout entendu. C'est assez bien. Encore." "I heard everything." "It's rather good. Do it again." A moment I hesitated. "Encore," said he sternly. "Et point de grimace. À bas la timidité." "Again," said he, "and don't make faces at me. And no more timidity." Again I went through the part, but not half so well as I had spoken it alone. "Enfin, elle le sait," said he, half dissatisfied. "In the end, she knows it. She knows the words. Fine. And one cannot be fastidious or exacting under the circumstances." Then he added, "You may yet have 20 minutes for preparation. Au revoir." And he was going. Au revoir, as everyone knows, means a French sexual act that takes place between 3 people, I believe. "Monsieur," I called out, taking courage. "Eh bien, qu'est-ce que c'est, mademoiselle?" "J'ai bien faim." "Comment vous avez faim? Et la collation?" "I know nothing about it. I have not seen it shut up here." "Ah, c'est vrai," said he. And then me, came along to translate for you. She said, "Sir?" And he's like, "Yeah, what?" She's like, "Dude, I'm hungry." And he's like, "What do you mean you're hungry? After that big collation, lunch." "I didn't get any because you locked me in a fucking attic, you idiot." "Oh, yeah." In translation. In a moment, my throne was abdicated, the attic evacuated. An inverse repetition of the impetus which had brought me up to the attic instantly took me down to the very kitchen. I thought I should have gone to the cellar. The cook was imperatively ordered to produce food, and I, as imperatively, was commanded to eat. To my great joy, this food was limited to coffee and cake. I had feared wine and sweets, which I did not like. How he guessed that I should like a petit pâté à la crème, I cannot tell, but he went out and procured me one from some quarter. With considerable willingness, I ate and drank, keeping the petit pâté until the last as a bonne bouche. Yummy, yummy wee thing. Yummy wee thing. Monsieur Paul superintended my repast, and it was almost forced upon me more than I could swallow. Oh, Lucy! À la bonne heure, he cried, when I signified that I really could take no more, and with uplifted hands implored to be spared the additional roll on which he had just spread butter. You will set me down as a species of tyrant and bluebeard, starving women in a garret, whereas after all I am no such thing. Now, mademoiselle, do you feel courage and strength to appear? I said, I thought I did. Though in truth I was perfectly confused and could hardly tell how I felt. But this little man was of the order of beings who must not be opposed, unless you possessed an all-dominant force sufficient to crush him at once. I wonder what a person like that is like, and what it would be like to be their sister. I sent Tali's scarf back to her, and it hasn't arrived yet, so if it got lost in the post, that's my fault, and I'm going to be in trouble. Come then, said he, offering his hand. I gave him mine, and he set off with a rapid walk, which obliged me to run at his side in order to keep pace. In the carré, he stopped a moment. Tortured. It was lit with large lamps. The wide doors of the classes were open, and so were the equally wide garden doors. Orange trees in tubs and tall flowers in pots ornamented these portals on each side. Groups of ladies and gentlemen in evening dress stood and walked amongst the flowers. Within, the long vista of the schoolrooms presented a thronging, undulating, murmuring, waving, streaming multitude, all rose and blue and half-translucent white. There were lustres burning overhead. Far off there was a stage, a solemn green curtain, a row of footlights. Guys, why are you arguing in the chat when you could be talking about how beautiful and important I am? Also, next time I will bring a Twinkie and eat a Twinkie for the first time live on camera. And that will settle it. I'll decide whether it's good or not. N'est-ce pas que c'est beau? Isn't it lovely? Demanded my companion. I should have said it was, but my heart got up into my throat. Oh, thank you very much to Felicia. Thank you. It's not good. I could have done more better. Practiced. I didn't say I was going to eat the whole thing. I'm just going to try a little bit. And I'll have a sick bucket beside me. My heart got up into my throat. Monsieur Paul discovered this and gave me a side scowl and a little shake for my pains. I will do my best, but I wish it was over, said I. And then I asked, are we to walk through that crowd? By no means. I manage matters better. We pass through the garden here. In an instant we were out of doors. The cool, calm night revived me somewhat. It was moonless, but the reflex from the many glowing windows lit the court brightly, and even the alleys dimly. Heaven was cloudless and grand with the quiver of its living fires. How soft are the nights of the continent! How bland, balmy, safe. No sea fog, no chilling damp. Mistless as noon and fresh as morning. Oh, okay. Having crossed court and garden, we reached the glass door of the first class. It stood open, like all other doors that night. We passed, and then I was ushered into a small cabinet, dividing the first class from the grande salle. Cabinet in this absolutely does not mean a small wooden box, like a piece of furniture. It means like a little anteroom, you know. Come on, Niobe. Oh, come up here then. Come on. You want to come here? You're going the wrong way. You want to come right up? Come on, Niobe. Come on. Come on, sweetie. Give me a kiss. Come on. Niobe's just learning that she can jump onto the couch and onto me as well. Come on, sweetie. Come and show the people how clever you are. Come on. Come and show them. Come and show them. No, she's not going to do it. I can tell. Nuggle. Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear. You can go back to bashing Twinkies as long as you occasionally throw in a compliment about me. A small cabinet dividing the first class from the console. This cabinet dazzled me. It was so full of light. It deafened me. It was so clamorous with voices. It stifled me. It was so hot, choking, thronged. Leaning forward to pat Niobe. De l'ordre! Du silence! Cried Monsieur Paul. Is this chaos? He demanded, and there was a hush. With a dozen words and as many gestures, he turned out half the persons present and obliged the remnant to fall into rank. Those left were all in costume. They were the performers, and this was the green room. Monsieur Paul introduced me. All stared and some tittered. It was a surprise. They had not expected the Englishwoman would play in a vaudeville. What are you doing, sweetheart? Oh, nothing naughty. Just hanging out. Okay, good. Good. Ginevra Fanshawe, beautifully dressed for her part and looking fascinatingly pretty, turned on me a pair of eyes as round as beads. In the highest spirit, unperturbed by fear or bashfulness, delighted, indeed, at the thought of shining off before hundreds, my entrance seemed to transfix her with amazement in the midst of her joy. She would have exclaimed, but Monsieur Paul held her and all the rest in check. Having surveyed and criticised the whole troupe, he turned to me. You too must be dressed for your part. Dressed? Dressed like a man, exclaimed Zélie Saint-Pierre, darting forwards, adding with officiousness, I will dress her myself. To be dressed like a man did not please and would not suit me. I had consented to take a man's name and part. As to his dress, haute là. Stay there. Whoa, that far, no further. No, I would keep my own dress, come what might. Monsieur Paul might storm, might rage. I would keep my own dress. I said so with a voice as resolute and intent as it was low and perhaps unsteady in utterance. He did not immediately storm or rage, as I fully thought he would. He stood silent. But Zélie again interposed. She will make a capital petit maître. Here are the garments, all complete. Somewhat too large, but I will arrange all that. Come, chère amie, belle Anglaise. My dear friend, beautiful English girl. Careless whisper. And she sneered, for I was not belle. Oh, Lucy. She seized my hand. She was drawing me away. Monsieur Paul stood impassible, neutral. You must not resist, pursued Saint-Pierre, for resist I did. You will spoil all, destroy the mirth of the piece, the enjoyment of the company, sacrifice everything to your amour-propre, self-regard. This would be too bad. Monsieur will never permit this. She sought his eye. I watched likewise for a glance. He gave her one, and then he gave me one. Stop, he said slowly, arresting St. Pierre, who continued her efforts to drag me after her. Everybody awaited the decision. He was not angry, not irritated. I perceived that and took heart. You do not like these clothes? He asked, pointing to the masculine vestments. I don't object to some of them, but I won't have them all. How must it be then? How accept a man's part and go on the stage dressed as a woman? This is an amateur affair, it is true. A vaudeville de pensionnat. Certain modifications I might sanction, yet something you must have to announce you as of the nobler sex. Nobler. Yeah, sure. And I will, monsieur, but it must be arranged in my own way. Nobody must meddle. The things must not be forced upon me. Just let me dress myself. Monsieur, without another word, took the costume from St. Pierre, gave it to me, and permitted me to pass into the dressing room. Once alone, I grew calm and collectedly went to work. Retaining my woman's garb without the slightest retrenchment, I merely assumed in addition a little vest, a collar and cravat, and a paletot of small dimensions. Feel like it's some kind of hat? Don't know. The whole being the costume of a brother of one of the pupils. Having loosened my hair out of its braids, made up the long back hair close, and brushed the front hair to one side, I took my hat and gloves in my hand and came out. Do you hear that? Do you hear that, Nibby? Hey, got lots of rain and storm outside. Sorry. Yeah, full circle from men playing women. I had to play the king in a school play when I was 10 years old and I'm still not over it. It was a production of Cinders, so, gender swap roles were kind of the point, but nope. Never gotten over it. I will never, ever, ever dress up as a man again. I don't want to. I'm not going to. I took my hat and gloves in my hand and came out. Oh, I mean, if you've got to play a dude in a play, the king is probably the best one, but Monsieur Paul was waiting, and so were the others. Oh, Flora doing something. He looked at me. That may pass in a pensionnat, he pronounced. Then added, not unkindly, Courage, mon ami. Un peu de sang-froid, un peu d'aplomb, Monsieur Lucien, et tout ira bien. Have courage, my friend. A little sang-froid, that's our word now, sorry, France. A little bit of aplomb, and everything will be fine. St. Pierre sneered again in her cold, snaky manner. I was irritable because excited, and I could not help turning upon her and saying that if she were not a lady and I a gentleman, I should feel disposed to call her out. Oh, Lucy! After the play, said Monsieur Paul. I will then divide my pair of pistols between you, and we will settle the dispute according to form. It will only be the old quarrel of France and England. She was going to duel St. Pierre. But now the moment approached for the performance to commence. Monsieur Paul, setting us before him, harangued us briefly, like a general addressing soldiers about to charge. Christ's sake. Good girl. Out you go. Quick. Outside. Good girl. It's cold every time. I don't know what he said, except that he recommended each to penetrate herself well with a sense of her personal significance. Just going to let us all enjoy how funny that line is. God knows I thought this advice superfluous for some of us. A bell tinkled. I and two more were ushered onto the stage. The bell tinkled again. I had to speak the very first words. Do not look at the crowd nor think of it, whispered Monsieur Paul in my ear. Imagine yourself in the garret, acting to the rats. He vanished. The curtain drew up, shriveled to the ceiling. The bright lights, the long room, the gay throng burst upon us. I thought of the black beetles, the old boxes, the worm-eaten bureaus. I said my say badly, but I said it. That first speech was the difficulty. It revealed to me this fact, that it was not the crowd I feared so much as my own voice. Foreigners and strangers, the crowd were nothing to me, nor did I think of them. When my tongue once got free and my voice took its true pitch and found its natural tone, I thought of nothing but the personage I represented, and of Monsieur Paul, who was listening, watching, prompting in the side scenes. By and by, feeling the right power come, the spring demanded gush and rise inwardly, I became sufficiently composed to notice my fellow actors. Some of them played very well, especially Ginevra Fanshawe, who had to coquette between two suitors and managed admirably. In fact, she was in her element. I observed that she once or twice threw a certain marked fondness and pointed partiality into her manner towards me, the fop. With such emphasis and animation did she favour me, such glances did she dart out into the listening and applauding crowd, that to me, who knew her, it presently became evident that she was acting at someone. And I followed her eye, her smile, her gesture, and ere long discovered that she had at least singled out a handsome and distinguished aim for her shafts, full in the path of those arrows, taller than other spectators, and therefore more sure to receive them, stood, in attitude quiet but intent, a well-known form, that of Dr. John. Dr. John's mysterious schoolgirl beloved was the only girl, apart from Lucy, that we ever hear about. Incredible. This spectacle seemed somehow suggestive. There was language in Dr. John's look, though I cannot tell what he said. It animated me. I drew out of it a history. I put my idea into the part I performed. I threw it into my wooing of Ginevra. In the Urs, or sincere lover, I saw Dr. John. Did I pity him, as erst? No, I hardened my heart, rivaled and outrivaled him. I knew myself but a fop, but where he was outcast, I could please. Now I know I acted as if wishful and resolute to win and conquer. Ginevra seconded me. Between us we half changed the nature of the role, gilding it from top to toe. Between the acts, Monsieur Paul told us he knew not what possessed us, and half expostulated. C'est peut-être plus beau que votre modèle, said he, mais ce n'est pas juste. He said, it's kind of better than the script, but it's not right. Y'all have been real gay on stage. He's not saying that, but you know. I know not what possessed me either, but somehow my longing was to eclipse the Urs, i.e. Dr. John. Ginevra was tender. How could I be otherwise than chivalric? Retaining the letter, I recklessly altered the spirit of the role. Without heart, without interest, I could not play it at all. It must be played. In went the yearned-for seasoning. Thus flavoured, I played it with relish. What I felt that night, and what I did, I no more expected to feel and do than to be lifted in a trance to the seventh heaven. Cold, reluctant, apprehensive, I had accepted a part to please another. Ere long, warming, becoming interested, taking courage, I acted to please myself. Yet the next day, when I thought it over, I quite disapproved of these amateur performances, and though glad that I had obliged Monsieur Paul, and tried my own strength for once, I took a firm resolution never to be drawn into a similar affair. A keen relish for dramatic expression had revealed itself as part of my nature. To cherish and exercise this newfound faculty might gift me with a world of delight, but it would not do for a mere looker-on at life. The strength and longing must be put by, and I put them by, and fastened them in with the lock of a resolution which neither time nor temptation has since picked. Yep, this is the gayest bit of the book that I remember. One where Lucy dresses up kind of like a guy and plays a guy in a play, and her and Ginevra have so much sexual tension on stage, it changes the play. No sooner was the play over, and well over, than the choleric and arbitrary Monsieur Paul underwent a metamorphosis. His hour of managerial responsibility past, he at once laid aside his magisterial austerity. In a moment he stood amongst us, vivacious, kind, and social, shook hands with us all round, thanked us separately, and announced his determination that each of us should in turn be his partner in the coming ball. On his claiming my promise, I told him I did not dance. For once I must, was the answer, and if I had not slipped aside and kept me out of his way, he would have compelled me to the second performance. But I had acted enough for one evening. It was time I retired into myself and my ordinary life. My dun-coloured dress did well enough under a paletot on the stage, but would not suit a waltz or a quadrille. Withdrawing to a quiet nook, whence unobserved I could observe, the ball, its splendours, and its pleasures passed before me as a spectacle. I think, sorry, I need some lip balm. I think that for Lucy, her newfound love of drama is all caught up with her feelings for Ginevra, which I think is part of the reason why she kind of locks that acting dream away and won't look at it. I mean, she could possibly become an actress, but it's all tied up with those feelings, and either she's not ready to face them, or she looked around at the time period she lived in and decided not to, or didn't even know. But we know. We know. Again, Ginevra Fanshawe was the belle, the fairest and the gayest present. She was selected to open the ball. Very lovely she looked, very gracefully she danced, very joyously she smiled. Such scenes were her triumphs. She was the child of pleasure. Work or suffering found her listless and dejected, powerless and repining, but gaiety expanded her butterfly's wings, lit up their gold dust and bright spots, made her flash like a gem and flush like a flower. At all ordinary diet and plain beverage she would pout, but she fed on creams and ices like a hummingbird on honey paste. Sweet wine was her element, and sweet cake her daily bread. Ginevra lived her full life in a ballroom. Elsewhere she drooped, dispirited. I mean, she sounds really cool to me, so. Think not, reader, that she thus bloomed and sparkled for the mere sake of Monsieur Paul, her partner, or that she lavished her best graces that night for the edification of her companions only, or for that of the parents and grandparents who filled the carré and lined the ballroom, under circumstances so insipid and limited, with motives so chilly and vapid, Ginevra would scarce have deigned to walk one quadrille, and weariness and fretfulness would have replaced animation and good humour. But she knew of a leaven in the otherwise heavy festal mass which lightened the whole. She tasted a condiment which gave it zest. She perceived reasons justifying the display of her choicest attractions. Yep. Found something that brings me much joy, but I'm not pretty enough, so I'm never going to revisit that again. Can we get some F's going in the chat for Lucy and all of us? Thank you, Danny. In the ballroom, indeed, not a single male spectator was to be seen who was not married and a father, Monsieur Paul excepted. That gentleman, too, being the sole creature of his sex permitted to lead out a pupil to the dance. And this exceptional part was allowed him, partly as a matter of old established custom. Thank you, Nick. For he was a kinsman of Madame Beck's and high in her confidence. Partly because he would always have his own way and do as he pleased. And partly because, wilful, passionate, partial as he might be, he was the soul of honour, and might be trusted with a regiment of the fairest and purest, in perfect security that under his leadership they would come to no harm. Many of these girls, it may be noted in parenthesis, were not pure-minded at all, very much otherwise. But they no more dare betray their natural coarseness in Monsieur Paul's presence than they dare tread purposely on his corns, laugh in his face during a stormy apostrophe, or speak above their breath while some crisis of irritability was covering his human visage with the mask of an intelligent tiger. Monsieur Paul then might dance with whom he would, and woe be to the interference which put him out of step. Oh my god, this chapter's so long! I'm so tired. We've been going for an hour and a half. Okay, we can do it. Can we? Oh my god, there's so much of it left. Oh, these slutty girls pretending to be nice. They're not innocent. They know how a baby gets there. Others there were admitted as spectators, with seeming reluctance, through prayers by influence under restriction, by special and difficult exercise of Madame Beck's gracious good nature, and whom she all the evening, with her own personal surveillance, kept far aloof at the remotest, drearest, coldest, darkest side of the carré, a small forlorn band of jeunes gens, these being all of the best families, grown-up sons of mothers present, and whose sisters were pupils in the school. That whole evening was Madame on duty beside these jeunes gens, attentive to them as a mother. Attractive to them as a mother? Jesus. Attentive to them as a mother, but strict with them as a dragon. There was a sort of cordon sketched before them, which they wearied her with prayers to be permitted to pass, just to revive themselves by one dance with that belle blonde, or that jolie brune, or cette jeune fille magnifique aux cheveux noirs comme le jais. The beautiful girl, the beautiful blonde girl, the pretty brunette girl, that magnificent young woman with jade black hair. Jade? No, I'm thinking of, whatever's black. Taisez-vous, Madame would reply, heroically and inexorably. Vous ne passerez pas à moi que ce ne soit sur mon cadavre, et vous ne danserez qu'avec la nonnette du jardin. Vous ne danserez qu'avec la nonnette du jardin, alluding to the legend. I know, I think I'm going to stop in a minute, but I had to get that reply from Madame Beck. She would say, shut up. You're not going to go past unless it's over my dead body. And you're not going to dance away with nobody except the ghost nun in the garden. I love Madame Beck. She's horrible, but I love her. And she majestically walked to and fro along their disconsolate and impatient line, like a little Bonaparte in a mouse-coloured silk gown. And I am going to stop there because also, Madame Beck, not the nicest lady perhaps, but she means it. So we will read the rest of the chapter about the fete tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. I got Dungeons and Dragons. Well, no, sorry. I got The Thing, and then I've got D&D after that if it's the right time, and you guys don't care. Smacking the bun. Scrunchie as loosely as possible for minimal hair creases and let it dry. My hair only really works if I let it dry from wet and don't brush it. Well, I comb it and then let it dry. That's how the ringlets come to be. But it has to be wet in the morning for that. I would love to see some pictures on Twitter, like DM me or something, if you would. But yeah, thank you guys. Really long video today. Sorry about that. But it is the gayest part of the book, so I thought you'd all enjoy that. Unless it gets gayer. I'm not sure it does. Thank you, Jessie. So thank you, Josh, and thank you, Felicia, for the scrunchy tips. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everybody who's here. Thank you, John. I know you're here as well. And thank you, people in the future watching this. Okay. I will see you guys tomorrow, maybe. Oh, no, not tomorrow, the other day. Whenever. Wash your hands. Be good to each other. Get enough sleep. I'm a doctor. I love you.